Welcome to another episode of Strategy, and today we're going to look at chapter number 3. So let me just move this away a little bit. So before I actually tell you about chapter number three is about the external environment. Let me tell you an interesting story. And by the way, this is what I had mentioned in earlier videos as well. If you tell stories, people are more engaged because people want to hear. Look at religion, the best business. And again, I keep telling that don't talk about religion and beliefs. But if there is something good, you want to take good from that. And so most of the religions, they talk. It's all stories basically. Okay, that's how you capture people's attention. So let me tell you an interesting story about Malcolm Gladwell. He has awesome author, really, really good author. If you ever get a chance, try to read all the books he has written. I think he's written 4 or 5 books: Outlier, Tipping Point, David and Goliath. Really an awesome author. So I mean, really good stories. So in his book, I think it's Outliers probably. But anyway, it's Outliers. So, but anyway, read all his books. These days, there's no excuse. You get audio books. You could listen to them while you're driving. So, in his book, he talks about war games, there was a simulation. This was done back in 90s. This is the Millennium War. So if there's a war this is before actually late 90s, so this is before we actually went to war with Iraq. So the war was US fighting Iraq. So Iraq has this ragtag army. The army doesn't even have shoes and raggedy clothes and all that. And here's the US, US Army with all the latest and the greatest weapons. You could find anything and everything and destroy it even from the sky. We didn't have drones back then, but still we could, had big bombs, the mother of all bombs and all that. So here's the US on one side, all kinds of weapons and everything modern. Here's Iraq. Ragtag army, half their weapons don't even work. Their tanks, just rotting, rusted. So, no, but this was simulation. So on one side, so both these simulations were, so they had generals, U.S. generals, nobody from Iraq. So, but some of the U.S. generals were pretending that they are Iraqis, and that's how they were running the simulation. And generals from the U.S. side were running the U.S. simulation, and some other generals from the U.S. side were running the Iraqi simulation. So simulation was ran. There's an interesting ending to this. There's a reason why I'm telling you this. But anyway, I'll tell you about that when we come back. So let me tell you about the external environment and why it is so important for a company. So let's look at the external environment. Again, by the way, don't put people on hold too much. That can be annoying. The only reason I'm doing this here is because I want to illustrate, I want to make the point. I want you to be the best, the awesome public speakers, presenters, because that is the #1 skill that is important these days. If you cannot communicate effectively, guess what? Your message is lost. If your message is lost, nobody remembers you. You're not a good manager then, or a leader. So if you want to be a really awesome manager, awesome leader, hey, guess what? You got to be able to tell interesting stories. That's the next level of presentation. Anybody can, even a monkey can read from PowerPoint slides. You're here for a reason because you want to know what is the awesome way of presenting. So, all right, so let's talk about the company's external environment. By the way, I'm going to keep giving you tips on how to be a better presenter. I'm going to be giving you ninja skills for how to be really good at whatever you do in your life. So what is the external environment? Anything that is outside the company is external environment. So let's just look at this. So people working for the company, factories, money in the bank, the patents and all that, that is all internal because that belongs to the company. Although you can't say people belong to the company, but that is inside the company. And anything, so whatever is inside the company has control over it. versus whatever is outside the company. Company typically has very little to no control over it, unless you talk about bribing politicians and things like that. Then it's a different story. But for the most part, not much control. Anyway, so, and as I keep saying, we uncover a few key ideas, not go over the whole chapter. Otherwise, this would be a 3-4 hour long video, because you know how much I talk, you know how much I love to talk. All right, so you can divide the external environment into these components. Macro is the environment that actually affects all the companies. Industry and competitive environment is actually all the competitors and the industry that the company is in. Obviously, at the center is the company. So company has control over this. Not as much control over this part, but still it can do something about it. And still less control over this. So let's talk about economic conditions. You know what? I'll show you a map for economic conditions. By the way, before we do that, let's pick a company to analyze. And since I can, take your feedback on this, but I'm seeing all these people. All of you want me to talk about Walmart. All right, okay, Walmart it is. Again, heading, because I can't see your response or anything. All right, so we're going to talk about Walmart. Let's do this. We'll come back to this in a bit because I don't want to save that. Anyway, so let's go to this. So as I was talking, so this is a great website, finwiz.com. Let me just show you their homepage. Pretty cool. Free market analysis. All right, so this is a pretty cool, in case any of you is interested in trading stocks. This is a great resource. So not a good day today in the markets, but actually you can make lots of money even in these days. And I'll talk about that later on in the last class. I'll create a video for that. So you got lots of interesting things. You could do the screener, screen for companies, whatever you want. But anyway, as I mentioned, we'll go over that later on. But I just want to show you something over here. And as I mentioned, the external environment. So, okay. So here, let's look at the US dollar. Okay. Okay, well, it is coming up. Yes, it is up now. Let me move this back. All right, this is the advantage of having a cool laptop. Okay, you could write on things. Well, you could write on a website too. That's Microsoft Edge, by the way, that I'm using. See, in Zoom, I have to move windows around, so sometimes I'm not able to do it as fast as I want it to be. You know what, let me go back over here. Okay. Now, okay. All right. So this is the weekly chart of US dollar. And there's a reason why I'm showing you this. Sorry, I have to move my face around quite a bit. But as I said, you want to make sure that if people can see you, that adds to the value of your presentation. Anyway, so if you were a company, now we're talking about Walmart. This is back in 2000 and half of like 2014, so like somewhere around like June, July time, US dollar was at 80, and then it went all the way up to 100. So 80 to 100, 25% increase in US dollar. Okay, so if the companies that are manufacturing in the US, guess what happens? Now, since the dollar has gone up, The companies that are importing, it's good for them because they are able to get the products cheaper. But if the companies that are manufacturing in the US, now the US goods are more expensive outside the US. So company, has very little control over what happens to the dollar. So 25%. And if you find out, if you look at the profit percentage, and I highly encourage you to do that, go to finance.yahoo.com, and over there you will see profit percentages. You'll be surprised, you'll be actually shocked to see profit percentages of companies. Walmart makes like 3%, Apple 20 something percent. That's very low. But if you see this difference, 25%, that could bankrupt a company easily. And that's what happened to Volkswagen, not because it makes crappy cars, actually. This is before the diesel scandal and all that, because of what was happening to the dollar. This is back in 2000. The dollar kept going down. And so guess what? US, so like a situation like this is great for a company that is manufacturing in the US. This drop in the US dollar, because now the US goods are cheaper outside. So this is great for an exporter from US. And this situation is great for importers. Okay? Because if you're importing into the US, you're buying a lot more. So again, Volkswagen, no fault of its own, was losing money because look at this. This is a 15% drop. That is why, and this is, I'm talking about back in the day, like 2000s and all. So nowadays, that's why most of the companies have factories all over the world. So if there's any currency fluctuation or something, they can mitigate that risk. By the way, it's good to have, this kind of, like look at Microsoft Edge is good. You could write on the website itself. There is a, on the side, you'll see like an icon on the left-hand top right-hand corner. I don't know if you can see this. I'm making this over here. So here you will see, right now it is not because I'm in the edit mode, but over here you'll see that, okay? So Microsoft Edge. Right. Anyway, the point I wanted to make is currency fluctuations can make or break a company because most of the companies don't have that much profit cushion. So let's go back to the external environment. And what we're going to do is, since we're talking about Walmart, whatever is positive for Walmart will put a plus sign. Whatever is negative for Walmart will put a negative sign. By the way, if you want, the stock symbol for Walmart is WMC. So economic conditions could be currency, could be the economy, all these things. And I just showed you the chart. So that could, depending upon how the currency moves, it could have a positive or negative impact. So you could do this and you could give an explanation. So it's positive or negative. By the way, when you're analyzing your company, you don't have to analyze all these factors. You just analyze the ones that are applicable to your company. The next factor is social cultural. Social cultural means what is going on in the environment. If for whatever reason people want to boycott Walmart because Walmart is an evil company and all that, whatever. So then that could affect Walmart. The next factor is technological factors. So again, you could put a plus or minus and you could give explanation as to what it is. And again, I'm not looking for your, you don't have to write. You have to support whatever you're saying with good argument. And again, not everything may be applicable to your company. Pick only the things that are applicable to your company. Technological factors, if let's say Walmart, AI uses AI and it's able to dramatically predict what people, or accurately predict what people want to buy, and then that would increase Walmart's profits. And technology could be a double-edged sword. Let's say Walmart starts using cashiers, automated cashiers, self-checkout. Guess what? It increases Walmart's profitability, but it may also increase the unemployment rate, which could negatively affect Walmart. Environmental forces, we just had a hurricane in Houston. So hurricanes and Harvey could be good for a company like Walmart. People want to buy stuff now because they have lost a lot of their stuff in the Harvey. So again, it could be positive or it could be negative. Let's say Walmart store itself got flooded. That has happened. Legal regulatory factors is if there are lots of regulations that Walmart has to follow, then could be bad. Political factors, again, same again, could be positive or negative, meaning if let's say we have, the trade deal with China or Mexico. So if there's tariffs put on products from China or Mexico, that could be negative. But if we get a better deal from them, that could be positive for Walmart. Okay, so again, plus minus. And then we come into this. This is also the inside circle. This part is also called Porter's 5 forces, meaning that's how you analyze company. These are the 5 forces. Let's look at the first one, substitute products. What do we mean by substitute? Substitute is whatever you buy at Walmart, can you get it somewhere else? So you could say that there are lots of substitutes for Walmart. You could go to Target, you could go to Kroger's. There are lots of places where you could go. So you could put negative for Walmart. But if you are in rural America, then you probably don't have much choice. Okay. So, but you don't want to confuse substitute products with rival firms. Rival firms, we're going to come to that in a bit. Substitute product is like what products Walmart sells. Walmart usually sells commodity products, bread, cheese, milk, egg, and all that. There is really not a good enough substitute for that. People just have to buy that. So there isn't much. You can't say it's positive or negative for Walmart because all those products could be bought elsewhere too. So depending upon how you want to argue it, you can do it this way. Buyers, do buyers have bargaining power? Can buyers dictate terms? Plus minus again in rural areas, well, there is no choice for buyers but to go to Walmart. But in big cities, buyers have lots of choices. New entrants, how likely it is that there is going to be a company that could challenge Walmart in terms of size and shape? You could argue that Amazon probably is doing a pretty good job of giving Walmart a good run for its money. So, or if you wanted to argue that there's nobody that can be at the size of Walmart, then you could give it a positive. But anyway, depending upon how you argue, you want to give it a positive or negative sign. And again, I'm not looking for you to come up with, why it is this. I want you to make good arguments. When you say it's positive, why it is positive. When you say negative, why it is negative. You could either pick a side or you could talk about both the sides. Either way is fine. Next thing is rival firms. Again, as I mentioned, Kroger's, Aldi's, all these are rival firms. So Walmart in areas such as Houston, big cities, lots of rivals, small cities, not too many rivals. Suppliers, most of the stuff, well, let's give positive for Walmart, and I'll give you explanation for this. Most of the stuff that Walmart sells is not like, exotic stuff or something that they would not be able to find manufacturers or suppliers for. So in this case, suppliers don't have bargaining power. So let's say, Walmart sells milk, egg, and cheese and all of that. So a supplier can say, oh, we're going to jack up the price of milk because, hey, we feel like it. Walmart will immediately drop it and pick another supplier. Okay. So suppliers do not have any bargaining power. Walmart has it. So that's why we're giving it a plus. And depending upon how you argue, you want to give Walmart a plus or a minus sign. I've talked from both the sides just to give you an idea. Either you could talk from both the sides, or you could talk one side, or you could talk both the sides with emphasis on one side. Either way, that's how you're going to analyze a company. You're talking about the company's external environment. The macro environment, which is this, which has impact on any and every company, and it even has impact on the customers as well. Industry and competitive environment, this is the environment that is immediately applicable to the company. Okay, like all the factors that come into that are these substitute products, buyers, new entrants, rival firms, and suppliers. So again, as I had said, we're not going to do, this is also called Pestel Analysis. It should be an E, not an A. Because we want to focus on, again, we don't want this to be a 3-hour-long video. So we're just uncovering few key ideas rather than going over everything. And I have actually explained all these things anyway. Okay, so let's look at. So we're looking at, I'm going to show you something interesting, which is going to be the strategic group. Let's see when it comes up. Okay, so now here, there's an interesting thing, industry rivalry. It doesn't matter how many rivals are there, but if the competition is cutthroat, then profit margins are going to be lower. So example of that is Airbus and Boeing. There are only these two major companies, but since the competition is so fierce, the profit margins are very low. Okay. Versus over here, if there could be a lot of competitors, but they don't really compete, or they're not trying to bleed the other competitor, then the profit margins would be healthy. Okay, well, we have, and again, you see lots of factors and, okay, so now we're coming to this. So you see lots of concepts in this. We can pick whichever concept you want. Okay, by the way, this concept is about strategic group, and strategic group is you're looking at companies that are very close to you. So if you want to analyze Walmart, you're better off analyzing Walmart, Kmart, Target. Okay, it doesn't make sense to analyze Walmart with Neiman Marcus because they are not really competing head to head. So look at this. This is the geographical coverage. Walmart is in many areas. Price-wise, it is low. Neiman Marcus, totally opposite. So again, make sure you pick the companies that are important or that do the similar things or in similar businesses. Okay. All right, so this is another interesting concept, which is key success factors, which is like the secret sauce. What makes the company successful? Okay, this is actually a cool concept for you to analyze when you're looking at the companies as well as in your discussions. The reason a company is successful is it does something that is really, really above and beyond. That's really good. That's why the company gets great following, loyal customers. It's because of something that they do really, really good. That's their key success factor. It's a great concept to look at. Okay. Now again, these are different areas where the company could have key success factor: technology related, manufacturing, distribution, marketing, these different places. And again, when you analyze, you don't have to analyze all of them, just pick one and go with that. Okay. All right, so quickly recap, this chapter was about external environment, and external environment, as we talked about, the macro environment, which affects all the companies. You got political factors, economy, technology, social, cultural, legal, all these factors that affect that. And there's very little control that the company has over it, versus the other factors are the Porter's five forces, the bargaining power of suppliers, substitute products, buyers, competitive firms, the rivalry, and all that affects the company immediately. So make sure you analyze that, and you can have charts to prove your point. Anyway, so that was about chapter number 3. And now let's look at, let me complete the story about Malcolm Gladwell. So as I mentioned, he's a really interesting author. He's written lots of good books, Tipping Point, Again, not selling his book, but I really enjoy reading his books, Outlier and all that. So in this book, let me recap about that. The war games is US on one side, Iraqi simulation. Okay. So there's no Iraqi generals. It's the US generals that are pretending to be Iraqis, and then you get the US guys. Okay, so they have this simulation, and there is the reason this is a story is in the simulation, the first version of the simulation, Iraqi army won. Again, not cheering for Iraq, but I'll tell you why. Because the general that was running the Iraqi side had a better strategy than the general that was running the US side. Okay, I'll explain. So the Iraqi army, what the general for that is, he looked at what is the capability of the US Army. So US Army has all these radar detectors and sonar detectors and all that. So what he did was, and then, outside of Iraq, again, this is simulation, you had all these, the Navy ships, the warships, the big carrier ships. Okay, those ships were there. And if these ships were equipped with radar detectors and sonar detectors, so they could detect any kind of threat that was coming closer to them. But what this Iraqi army did was they floated little dinkies, little boats. They filled all these boats with explosives, and then they pushed them to the U.S. carriers. And guess what? Day two, overnight, the U.S. carrier is gone because all these boats with explosives, they took out the U.S. carrier. And all of a sudden, you get thousands of people that are dead. It shows bad. It comes up as a bad news in the U.S. newspapers, and suddenly there is a public outcry that we didn't want this war. Why are we in this war? And then we're forced to pull out. So that was the round one. So the Iraqi general used a very clever strategy. He looked at what the U.S. capabilities are and what the weakness of those capabilities were. The capabilities of the US were radar detectors, sonar detectors, and then you got the satellites also, but they couldn't pick up little objects like little boats. So sometimes, you can, so the ninja lesson is, you don't have to be the biggest and the strongest to be successful. You can be the smartest to be successful. So that's it. Thank you for watching this, and we'll see you in future videos. Thank you.